Well, as you know, my name is Javier. I had what I call an NDE-like experience. It's not your typical classic case. About 7.5 years ago now. Um, and before I get into that, this is my very first public appearance, I guess you can call it. I've gone to several support groups to give talks on the subject as of this year. So I'll preface it, I guess, by describing my life before this happened 7.5 years ago. It has to do with the death of my grandmother. Um, my entire life, I was 100% atheist and a pompous prick, I like to say. I was very cold-hearted. In fact, my family thought I might have Asperger's, as was mentioned earlier. I basically lacked any and all emotion, empathy, compassion. It just was so foreign to me. It was alien. And so my grandmother was like my soulmate. I always felt connected to her my entire life. We could communicate almost like The Shining without even speaking, like we were that close. And her goal for me in her whole life was that I accept God, not necessarily religion, but that I accept spirituality in my life, and I fought tooth and nail. And so I remember the crashing moment for her when she gave up on me. I was about maybe 10 years old, and she started sending me to Sunday school. And we got to the chapter where they were discussing Moses parting the Red Sea. And at 10 years old, I got up and I contradicted the priest, and I said, "You're a nut job. Like, a human being cannot part the ocean. Like, that's illogical. What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Child, you're blasphemous. You're the spawn of Satan. Get out of my class." And so they call my grandmother. She shows up, and she's like, "What have you done? You've been expelled." And I said, "Well, this is what I said." And so the priest asks me, "Are you going to deny it?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to stand by it." And so then she says, "Well, the kid's got his opinions." And we went home, and for the rest of that summer, she tortured me in reading the Bible with her all summer long. That was, yeah, quite the learning experience. Anyhow, so cut to the chase. Gosh. I had a wonderful life. I had a successful career. I am gay, and I had a 10-year relationship with my partner at the time. And my grandmother was very accepting of that and actually nurturing of my relationship, which the entire family thought very bizarre and unusual, being that we're Catholics. But it was what it was. And unfortunately, I was so just such a jerk that I lost ties with my family. I had wanted nothing to do with them. They just weren't my cup of tea. I had nothing in common with them. I always felt like, I like to say, was it the Munsters or the Addams Family, I think? Whichever one has the pretty Marilyn character. Yeah, and then that's how I felt, like, not that I'm all that, but I felt like I was Marilyn, and my family was all these weird, kooky characters that just irritated the living daylights out of me. And I lost contact with them for about 2.5 years. I had no ties to anybody. And through those 2.5 years, now in retrospect, I realized that I had like these psychic moments where I would just break down sobbing, and my ex would ask me, like, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know, I just feel like my grandmother needs me." And he would tell me, "Well, why don't you call your aunt where she lives to go see her? I know you don't want to see your family, but she's separate from that." And I said, "Absolutely not. I just don't want any ties," because I felt like if I opened that door, then I'd have to invite them all back in, and I wasn't about to do that. So it was a Wednesday night, business as usual. I'd gone to work, I came home, he was making dinner, I was having a glass of wine, just relaxing, listening to music, and just normal. I went to bed, and as I mentioned to David in my email, that I was so full of myself. I had my own bedroom. I was something else. And I wanted to be left alone, so I went to bed, and precisely at the moment, as I would find out late after the fact, that my grandmother died at 4:11 a.m., March 30th, 2006, I found myself suddenly feeling like pure consciousness is the best way to describe it. Like, I was out of body, I was no longer in human form, and I found myself kind of like floating in like outer space, this like just vast darkness. Then suddenly in front of me, it's very difficult to describe because literally, like, words cannot describe the experience. I felt like I was looking at a flat screen image, kind of like with the images we just saw of the various, extraterrestrials. It's as if we saw all of those nonstop, back to back in nanosecond form, but somehow I was able to process that. And each image was of someone I knew and did not know, and they insulted me and just literally disintegrated my essence to where I was obliterated into nothingness. And the way I describe it is each image, basically like one image said, bastard. The next one was like monster. The next one was jerk. Back to back to back to back. And I could see it into the infinite distance like a tunnel. Like when you put a mirror against a mirror and it creates this beautiful like reflective tunnel. That's what it looked like. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, am I gonna have to endure this torture? Like this is hell. And it just kept going. And I remember with each comment, an image felt like a needle, like bursting through me and destroying one molecule at a time. And I remember just thinking like I was literally disintegrating into nothingness. And so then I finally get to the end of this tunnel, and I see this beautiful, just words can't describe how gorgeous this orb, this sphere of light, and like it looked like a mother of pearl, I guess, but gold. And like when lava kind of dries in clumps in volcanoes, it looks like crusty, like you could peel up. That's what it looked like. It was just this most beautiful thing. And I remember thinking, oh wow, like I'm saved. Like this is like redemption. Like I'm not going to burn in hell for the rest of eternity. And right at that moment, I entered what I, in researching on the internet, have found out that in negative experiences, distressing experiences, we enter the eternal void. And so everything went black, and suddenly I felt as though I have never existed. Existence no longer existed. Like I was put into this infinite emptiness for eternity. And just like that, I woke up. And that's when it felt like I crashed back into my body. And I remember just bumping into walls and tripping over my bed and just like completely incoherent, like out of my mind. And I remember shrieking at the top of my voice. And that's when my now ex-partner came in and found me on the floor. And I was looking up, and I'll never forget how what brought me back to reality was looking at the smog detector light, the little green dot. And that's when I thought, oh my God, I'm alive. Like, I'm not dead. I'm not in hell. Like, I am still here. Like, I get a second chance. Like, I can fix all of this. So he comes in and he calms me down and he tells me, get it together. You have an important day at work tomorrow. Like, you can't be doing these hystericals. You've just had a night terror. It happens to people. Well, I'd never had a night terror. And in researching night terrors, this is nothing like that at all. This has completely changed my life, like, night and day. So I went to, and I'll never forget that day. Like, I can vividly remember almost every minute of that whole following day. And I remember going to work and sitting at my desk and just trying not to sob and not to cry. And then I'd excuse myself to the bathroom, and I'd close the door, and I would like hide my face in my lap, and I would just sob. And I'd never done that because, like I said, I didn't have emotions. And so I remember thinking, this is really weird. And so I tried to get people to go to lunch with me, and everybody just happened to be busy. And so I went to lunch by myself at this, oddly enough now in retrospect again, it all makes sense now. I went to this restaurant called The Mission, and it looks like you're inside a church. And because they were the only ones available at the time. They didn't have a wait list or long line. And so I'm sitting there, and I remember eating like a soup and salad combo, and all of a sudden one of my favorite songs of all time by Sarah McLachlan, Angel, started playing. And again, I just start sobbing, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a public restaurant. Like, I don't know what it feels like to cry, A, and B, people are gonna think I'm a kook, I'm a whack job. So I like just grab my food and I take it to go back to the office. Oh, that day was torture. I remember every minute hurt being at work. So fast forward, I get home, I tell my partner again, like something really tremendously bad has happened. I just know it. He's all, get over it. It was just a bad dream. Everything's going to be fine. So again, I'm having my glass of wine to decompress. At that point, I wasn't an alcoholic yet. And so I remember sitting there again while he's making dinner, and suddenly, this is where I get a little emotional. So the phone rang, and I remember instantly, without hesitation, not even like no hesitation, I looked at my partner, I said, there it is. And he says, what? And I didn't respond. I just walked over, grabbed the phone, and sure enough, it was my lifelong closest cousin, Elizabeth, who we've been inseparable our entire lives. And I saw her name on the caller ID, and I'm like, I knew it. And so she says instantly, Javier. And I said, yes. And she says, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you want nothing to do with your family. I totally respect that, but I have some bad news for you. And I, again, instantly said, oh, it's okay. I said, I know Grandma died. And she says, what? Did like one of your brothers already call you or something? And I said, no, she said goodbye last night. And she said, what are you talking about? And so then I went and told her what I've just told you people here. And she's like, but that's insane. And so for the next 7 years, I won't get into all that detail because I would have to write a book for that. My life just went upside down. I like to say that I felt like I used to be this cold jerk, kind of like a knight with armor. Like I was impenetrable. Like you could come up to me, insult me, and I would laugh like, yeah, right, you're ridiculous. Now, after that, it was like people would come up to me and tell me you're short, and like I would start crying. My family's like, who are you? Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm this jellyfish of emotions now. And it was just very bizarre. And so after that, I remember I never had time for like nieces and nephews' graduations or birthday parties, and all of a sudden I started hosting them and buying the birthday cake, and people are like, who is this weirdo? Like, why? What planet are you from? Again, I feel like I'm a reptilian at this point. And so it was, that part of me was good, but my life completely unraveled. I got fired for the first time in my life. My boss pulled me into his office and he says, we're not getting along here. And I said, what do you mean? He says, yeah, we hired you because you were a shark and you've turned into a guppy. And I said, I'm not going to deny that. I said, I'm performing a disservice to you. You wanted the guy that walked into the boardroom and insulted people and fired people and that sort of guy. I said, now I'm the kind of guy that wants to help them not lose their job. I'm the one that will rewrite the contract for them in order for not to lose their business. He's like, we don't want that. So I said, fine. I went unemployed for the first time in my life for 6 years. I lost everything. My first way of coping was I became a gambleaholic, and I've gone to many support groups since. I became a gambleaholic. I gambled away my life savings, my pension plan, all of it. I wanted to obliterate myself. When that didn't feel good enough, that's when I became the alcoholic. And I remember driving drunk on purpose at 100 miles an hour with the cruise control and saying, please God, like in the fog, and thinking, please God, a coyote, dog, something rabbit to hit me, and I can just spin out of control and just knock me out. I remember drinking to myself into blackouts, again, thinking like maybe I'll have liver failure and I'll just whatever. And then when that didn't work, at that point I lost my relationship because he literally was also like, who are you? Like, you're a stranger to me, I don't know who you are. I became very promiscuous and sexually active like I'd never done before in my life, and intentionally having unprotected sex, hoping to contract HIV, whatever it was, and hope it advanced and just knocked me out, putting me out of my misery. Same thing, didn't get anything, I'm still HIV negative, like I don't know how this works, but clearly I don't understand. I'm meant to be here for some reason. And after that episode that finally is what woke me up and made me understand I'm not dead for some reason and there's something I have to accomplish. So I was depressed. I tried to commit suicide for the last time this January. I tried to hang myself, and then something just sparked in me. And I remembered in doing my research, trying to peg myself, because like I mentioned to a couple of people before I started speaking that I didn't feel like I qualified for like an OBE or an NDE or any of that, because there was no bright tunnel, there was no, running into grandma and, saying, oh, we love you, go back, don't walk into the light. So I'm like, I don't relate, I'm a freak, I'm alone. So at that moment that I tried to hang myself, I remembered in researching the IONS group, this near-death experience discussion group in Orange County, and I thought, I got like this message. It was really bizarre, because now I've turned kind of psychic, which is really bizarre. And so I called them, and they were having a meeting that Saturday, and I thought, oh wow, like I just tried to kill myself on Thursday, and 2 days from now they're having a meeting. So I'll take that as a sign. Why not? So I showed up. From that moment forward, I had never told my story, by the way, only to like a handful of relatives until now, like I said. from the moment I spoke at that group, my life has been like exponentially getting better. Like it is just, even my family is like, what is going on? Like, and I tell them, I don't know. Like they ask me, like, do you have a voodoo priestess? Like somebody's like helping you here? Like, are you having your cards read? And I'm like, no, like I'm just speaking to people and telling my story. And one of the books that people recommend for me is this, I don't remember the author, but it's called Proof of Heaven. And yeah, you know it. Okay, well, you guys should research it, but I feel like that's my role in life now. For whatever reason, and I'm still, like, I filled out this form. I still don't associate with any particular religion. I just feel very spiritual. And talking with this NDE supporting priest, he described it as not the afterlife, but the beyond life, that there is something beyond us. And that's how I feel now. Like, I don't know what God is. I just know there is something beyond us. Because, again, going back to this group I go to now, the strangest things keep happening to me where, like, I have this car now, and I'd always wanted a really nice car, again, like before. And just the strangest things. And I saw it online. I thought, oh, I'm going to have, this car's going to be mine. And I thought, oh, I shouldn't be pretentious like I used to be. Like, but you know what? Who wouldn't want an Audi? So I forgive myself. Like, I'm a nice guy now. I spoil my nieces and nephews and all this stuff. So I went and I got it, and like everything I want, I get. Like now I have a job where it's the exact opposite. I've been promoted twice in only 7 months, and by the way, I'd never been promoted on any job because I was such a jerk. Like they're like, we're not promoting that guy. So all the strangest things, and then about a month ago. Finally, I made closure with the religious thing. I thought, okay, my family finally sat me down. They're like, okay, well, if you really have changed, then you will go to church with us. And I said, okay, you guys don't understand. It's not that I don't like religion. It's the procession, the structure of it that just still drives me nuts. The kneeling, the stand-up, the hugging. It's just like, oh, I don't have time for this. Not in a bad way. It's more like it's just not of interest to me. So my mom says, go with us this Sunday. And I said, oh, okay, I haven't been to church with them, I kid you not, in about 20 years. It has been that long. And so that morning, I kind of skipped some stories that I was homeless and I was crashing in relatives' garages after having stayed in 5-star hotels in Europe, which is still very bizarre that my family thinks I'm a freak. I was staying in their garage. And so I woke up and I was having a cigarette because I didn't smoke before, now I do. It helped me cope with this wacky life of mine. I got up and I said, oh, you know what, I'm not gonna go. I was in the garage smoking, and there was an old box of old childhood toys and whatnot. And so I'm just sitting there smoking, and all of a sudden I hear this this little horse toy going off, and I thought, and I instantly panicked. I freaked out. I was like, what? And so I thought, okay, I guess I better look into this. So I ran into my parents and I said, I guess I have to go to church. And they're like, what are you talking about? You look like you've seen a ghost. I said, I think I've just received a message telling me I need to go. So they're like, okay. So I went back to the garage to have another cigarette, and it went off again. And I finally dug up the box. And again, as proof of heaven or something, I guess, this horse is particular. Again, I'm a very logical person even to this day. I assumed maybe the weight, pressure of other stuff in the box might have triggered it, but no, this horse, for it to make that sound, I was pulling the tail, the hair, the ears, the legs. No, you have to squeeze the neck on both sides. And I'm like, okay, I freaked out. So I get to church. I'm sitting there like I've seen a ghost, and to this day, my own mother now tells a story to our relatives. The priest starts talking, and the Bible verse that he opens with is the story of Jeremy, and that was my ex's name of 10 years. And he too tried to make me believe in God, and it was the reverse. I belittled him and berated him for believing in God because it was a joke. It was the magic man in the sky, and I resented him for that. And so I didn't know until that Sunday that apparently the character Jeremy in the Bible survives these trials and tribulations because he will not stop believing in God. And so I started crying. And I was there with my cousin and my mom, and they were like, okay, this is weird. Like, we've been coming to this church, the exact same church, for 15 years, and they've never discussed the subject of Jeremy in the Bible. Like, what are the odds that one day you show up That's like the love of your life. Like we lived in Camelot. Like, not to brag, but it was like basically perfect. You know, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. The only reason it disintegrated is because, like I said, this NDE happened and he couldn't relate to me anymore. So now my life is wonderful. I've been to this group several times, and it seems like each time I go, something gets better and better and better. One of the things that I will be discussing with this next meeting I'm going to for this book is cognitive changes or changes beyond like emotional or spiritual. One of the things for me, the reason why I'm dressed like this, I didn't have time. I play softball now. You have to understand, when I was in high school, I was the vice president of the computer club. And I had no hand-eye coordination of any kind, no dexterity. I was a big geek. You know, I had bottle-thick glasses. I remember trying to play tennis and having my glasses broken. Then I tried basketball and my glasses were broken. I tried it all and my glasses always broke. So I just gave up and I thought, you know, I'm just meant to be this nerdy kid. I was about 5 feet tall, 100 pounds or 95 pounds, so I just said, screw it. Well, again, about 4 years ago, something just got into me and I've been playing softball ever since, and I'm actually like one of the best players on my team. And they asked me, wow, have you been playing since Little League? And I'm like, I didn't pick up a bat till 4 years ago. They're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, like this has to do with this NDE, I guess. I don't know. It's very bizarre. And so going back to the proof of heaven, I feel in a way like I'm the poster boy for this, because my life is very qualitative and quantitatively proven. Like I like the group I'm going to right now is, I'll show you my tax returns where from the day I graduated high school, my salary went up, 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 near-death experience, homeless, unemployed, broke, files for bankruptcy, loses all credit cards. Like I had a score of 811 and I went from that to like 444. And then now, back to employed and successful again, and credit high again. And I mean, it's everything. You can pick up the phone and just right now call some relative in Mexico or my sister in Dallas, and they'll tell you the monster I used to be and how they don't relate to me now, how strange I am and how better I am. And so that's why I relate to this book. Like maybe that's my life's job, to be proof of heaven. And I'll add that I've actually been very introverted and very shy. I'm mortified of speaking in groups, or I should say I used to be. And now it's like it just comes so natural because, as the Bible says, the truth shall set you free. And I think in just telling my story, I feel like for almost 7 years, a little over 7 years actually, I carried a tremendous sense of shame in telling my story. I felt like humiliating and embarrassing my family, and I didn't want to do that to them. And so I actually asked my mom for permission if I could, write a book or something, or be a part of this book and telling my story. And she said, absolutely, because that is part of being Catholic, is to help people. And if someone reads your story and it prevents them from committing suicide, or it helps them, better their lives, then by all means, you will not bring shame on the family. And I said, okay, cool. Because there is a lot of crazy stuff. Like one of the things and there's so many memories that come flooding back. One of the things that still strikes me in all that madness for 7 years, clearly I meant to still be alive because I never got a DUI. I never got into an accident. Even with my promiscuity, I can say I had sex in public and I never got arrested. I mean, when I look back at that phase, I'm like, my God, like my whole life would have been ruined. Like I'd be in jail right now. Like, I mean, life would have been over as I know it. The alcohol that I never, passed out medically, where I would have to go to the doctor. I mean, it's just too many signs that they're telling me I have a greater purpose in life now. And now another thing that my ex Jeremy, his grandmother, I was very close to, and she was very religious. And like 3 weeks before she passed, after my NDE, she came up to me one day, and I'll never forget. She said, "Do you know the story of Job?" And I said, "No, I don't read the Bible, Marie." She says, "Well, one day you will know the story of Job." And I thought, oh yeah, whatever. She's just taunting me again because she wants me to go to church with her. Sure enough, I am Job, is how I feel. If you guys aren't familiar with the story of Job, I'll give you the abbreviated version. Like me, successful guy, popular guy in town, has it all, beautiful family, successful, ventures, 100 cattle, you name it. the devil tells God, of course he believes in you and he's a good boy because you spoil him. You give him everything. I bet you if you take everything, he'll stop believing in you. And so God takes it all away. His children all die of diseases and whatnot, and his businesses go sour, and his cattle and livestock all die, and he's miserable and destitute, and he, basically stops believing in God for a split second, and then realizes, you know what? God is a good guy. He helped me out before, he'll do it again. And so God rewards him with threefold what he used to have. He used to have, 20 kids, now he has 50. Like, he used to have 100 cattle, now he has 500. Well, guess what? That's happened to me. My career is better than it was before. I used to be just mid-management, now I'm executive level. Like, okay, I never thought I would do that. I make a much bigger salary than I've ever done, all, keep in mind, within the last 7 months. Because I was unemployed about 8 months ago when I tried to commit suicide. That was part of it. I have my Audi. I like to say I didn't buy it for pretense. I bought it more for a sense of accomplishment. Like, wow, like I can't believe I'm this person again. And it's for business purposes, obviously, as well. And now I spend my money on my family. Like, it's so weird. My softball team is the best example. Half the team are like what I call low-wage earners. They don't make a whole lot of money. So I bought the uniforms for the team. And I just felt so good to do that. And now I find myself doing all these weird good things, like without even thinking about it. Like, I went to the grocery store, there was this homeless guy, and I was gonna give him cash, and I only had a $20 bill, and I thought, what the hell, $20 is nothing to me. And he started sobbing, and he's like, oh, God is good. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like, just, enjoy it, I'm just so grateful. At first like Job, I was very angry. Very, very angry. I don't know why. I wanted to know why this happened to me, why my life went upside down. Like, what did I do to deserve this? And the best I can think about now is I see life as this continuum. I think, as we mentioned earlier about past life regression and all that, I never believed in any of that stuff. Now I do, because in that experience I had, those images, like I said, they were people I knew and people I didn't know. So it's almost like I was paying the price for previous lifetimes. And that's why it was so just jarring and upsetting. And I feel like in this lifetime, my role is now to be a better person and to help others be better people and to kind of pay your debts of many hundred years. It's a line in a song that I love. By this group called Dead Can Dance, oddly enough. So yes, the dead can dance, and they are around us, and they are here, and they are present, and they do influence us. And they may not be in the shape and form that we all expect, because that would make life too easy. I think that's the beauty of life now, the surprise that you get. For a staunch former atheist, I find myself so out of my skin. It's very, very odd. Part of me is still trying to incorporate that, because as at the last group meeting I was at, you have to understand, I grew up with Carl Sagan as my hero. I admired all those type of genius people that just kind of believe we are one and all is one with the universe. And, I used to say that another song I like is called Feed the Tree, by this obscure British band, I think. And that's how I felt. Like, when I die, I just want to feed the tree. I just want to be nutrients, for the grass and the leaves. And, I'm one with the earth. I believe in Native American stuff. Clearly, all that's changed. I believe in the beyond. I've recently started reading tarot cards because this is all very weird and new. In fact, I was getting my hair cut a week ago. Yeah, last Sunday. And I'm sure you guys have seen that movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg. Well, for the first time in my life, as of last Sunday, I felt like that scene where she's talking to herself. They think she's talking to herself, but she's talking to the ghost, where she says about, girl, you in trouble, or something like that. I had that moment. So this girl's cutting my hair. And I'm sitting there, and I get this. It's hard to describe, because it's like a message that just kind of, it's almost like words that just appear like text in front of me in my consciousness, more than a voice. And so I'm sitting there getting my haircut, and what I see is, ask her if it's been a long time since she's been to church. And I'm having this conversation in my head, no, like, she's gonna think I'm cuckoo, like, I can't do this. And the next image thing in my consciousness says, her grandmother wants to see her in church. And I'm like, no, like she's cutting my hair, she's gonna screw it up. Like, okay, and then in my head I'm thinking, okay, fine, I'll tell her after the haircut so she doesn't screw it up. And so I was sitting there like, I feel like a whack job. Like maybe I do need to get medically checked. Because by the way, I did go to a therapist and tried medication for those 7 years and was told I was bipolar, and none of it helped, not the therapy. And I tell my family, there is no pill to cure your soul. You can take all you want. You have to cure your own soul on your own. That's why they say the expression soul searching. That's what I did for 7 years. So I digress. Back to this hair cutter. So finally I go to pay. And right before that, the messages tell her Adele or Aleda. It's some weird name. I couldn't understand it or read it. It was foreign to me. So I go to pay, and I tell her. Finally, I get the courage. I'm like, okay, this is. If it doesn't work, I'll never come back here again because that was my first time getting my haircut there. So I said, has it been a long time since you've been to church? And she's like jarred, like what? And I said, yes. Has it been a long time? She says, yes. Why? And I said, oh, I don't know how to describe this to you. I said, but I kind of sense things. Your grandmother wants to see you in church. And she says, what? And I said, yes, your grandmother's passed, right? And she says, yes, she passed away. And I said, well, she says she wants to see you in church. And by the way, there's something to do with an Aleda, Adele, I don't know. And she's like, she couldn't even process the credit card. She's like, oh, she called a coworker over, and the coworker had to like punch it in and everything. I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to like, disrupt your day. I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope it helps. And then all she said was, she was so freaked out. She said, just come back for your next haircut. And I said, hopefully I'll have an update from you. I said, thanks. And I left. And yeah, so that's where I'm at.